When Jenna moved into the small two-bedroom apartment on Willow Street, it felt like a quiet victory. After a rough breakup and months of couch surfing between friends, she finally had her own space again, well, half of it. The other half belonged to a stranger named Lena, a woman she'd found through an online roommate listing. Lena was polite, a little withdrawn, but friendly enough during their first meeting. The apartment was cozy, creaky hardwood floors, a single flickering kitchen light, and the faint scent of lavender from a candle left burning on the counter. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The first few days passed uneventfully. Jenna spent her evenings unpacking boxes and getting used to the odd little quirks of the place, the way the water pipes groaned when someone took a shower, or how the hallway light outside their door buzzed like a trapped wasp. Lena worked late nights at a hospital, so their schedules rarely overlapped. Jenna mostly saw her coming or going, always quiet, always tired looking, never quite making eye contact for more than a moment. Still, Jenna appreciated the peace. After all, she'd had worse roommates. Then came the first strange detail, something Jenna brushed off at the time. When she came home from work one evening, her apartment key didn't fit. The lock resisted her hand, twisting halfway before catching. Confused, she tried again. Nothing. She texted Lena, "Hey, did you change the lock?" Minutes later, Lena replied simply, "Yeah. I lost my copy. Sorry, meant to tell you." When Jenna asked for the new key, Lena said she'd left it on the kitchen counter. Sure enough, when Jenna finally got in, there it was, sitting perfectly centered on a napkin. It was odd, sure. But people lost keys all the time. She didn't think twice, until it happened again. A week later, she came home late from a double shift. Once again, her key didn't work. This time, when she knocked, no one answered. Through the narrow crack at the bottom of the door, she could see that the lights were off. But she swore she heard movement inside, a slow creak of floorboards, followed by silence. Her stomach tightened. After standing there for a full minute, she backed away, trying to convince herself it was nothing. When she returned the next morning, her key suddenly worked again, as if nothing had changed. That night, Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. The faint sound of the hallway light buzzing outside seemed louder than usual. For the next few days, Jenna tried to push the unease out of her mind. Maybe Lena had just been stressed. Hospital shifts were long, and people did odd things when exhausted. But something about the apartment had changed since that night. Every evening, the air felt heavier, humid, close, as if someone had been breathing too long in a sealed room. Jenna began waking up around 3 a.m., the floorboards groaning faintly in the hallway outside her door. Sometimes she thought she heard Lena's door open, followed by a whispering shuffle, then silence. One morning, Jenna decided to confront her. But Lena wasn't in her room. The door was open, the bed unmade. Clothes were scattered in strange piles, all black or gray, no color anywhere. On the nightstand sat a framed photo turned backward, the glass cracked through the middle. Something about the emptiness of the room felt wrong, like it had been lived in too long by someone who'd already left. When Jenna checked the kitchen, she found something else that stopped her cold. The front door lock changed again. Lena came home later that day, wearing scrubs, her hair damp, eyes sunken as if she hadn't slept in days. "You changed it again," Jenna said, trying to sound casual. Lena blinked, frowning faintly. "No, I didn't." Her tone was calm, almost too calm. Maybe maintenance did. But when Jenna checked with the building manager the next morning, he said no one had requested a lock change. "You and your roommate are the only ones with keys," he added, scratching his head. "Unless someone copied them." That night, Jenna couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the sound she'd heard that first night, the soft footsteps, the way the key had suddenly worked again the next day. Around midnight, she got out of bed to get water. As she passed Lena's room, she noticed the door slightly ajar, just enough to catch the faint glint of something metallic under the bed. Curiosity overpowered fear. She knelt, pushed her phone flashlight into the gap, and froze. There, tucked inside a shoe box, was a small leather-bound journal. Inside were pages filled with tiny, slanted handwriting. Some entries were dated, others weren't. Most were about Jenna. "She doesn't trust me yet. She tried the door again tonight. I think she saw the new key." The last page she flipped to made her drop the book entirely. It read, "If she tries to leave this time, I'll have to lock her out for good." Jenna sat there trembling, the silence of the apartment pressing in around her. The hallway light flickered again. And then, from behind her, came the sound of the front door unlocking. Jenna didn't breathe. She stayed perfectly still, crouched beside Lena's bed, her pulse roaring in her ears. The soft click of the front door latch echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. Someone had just come in, or gone out. For several long seconds, nothing followed. Then, slow, deliberate footsteps began crossing the living room floor. Jenna's throat tightened. She switched off her phone's flashlight, her hands trembling so violently she nearly dropped it. Through the sliver of space under Lena's door, she saw a pair of feet pause in the hallway, bare, pale feet, not Lena's. The feet lingered there for a moment before turning away, padding silently toward the kitchen. A faint hum followed, like a refrigerator starting up, or a whisper. Then the sound faded completely. Jenna waited several more minutes before daring to move. She crept out of Lena's room, clutching the journal to her chest, and checked the front door. It was locked again. No one in sight. But the air was thick with a smell she hadn't noticed before, metallic, sharp, almost like blood. The next morning, Lena acted as if nothing had happened. She was seated at the small breakfast table, stirring coffee with slow, repetitive motions. Her eyes looked glassy, distant. "You didn't come in last night, did you?" Jenna asked carefully. Lena looked up, blinking as though the question confused her. "Why would I?" Her lips curved in a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I was at work all night." Jenna said nothing, but her stomach dropped. She had heard someone. Later that day, Jenna noticed a faint smudge on the bathroom mirror, something oily, like a handprint. When she wiped it, she froze. Beneath the fogged surface, a faint outline appeared, letters scrawled into the glass itself. "Stay quiet." She stepped back, heart racing. That night, she moved her dresser in front of her bedroom door and kept the lights on until dawn. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined those bare feet standing outside her room, listening. 2 days later, Jenna came home early from work and caught Lena standing in front of the same mirror. She wasn't brushing her hair or putting on makeup, she was talking to it, her reflection moving a split second out of sync. Jenna watched, frozen, as Lena whispered, "She knows." Then, as if sensing she was being watched, Lena turned, too slowly, and smiled. "You shouldn't go through my things," she said softly. "He doesn't like that." Jenna didn't sleep that night. She sat awake in her bed with the dresser still barricading the door, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the apartment. Every creak of the floor made her flinch. Lena's words repeated in her mind like a broken record, "He doesn't like that." The next morning, when she finally gathered the courage to leave her room, Lena was gone. Her door stood wide open, clothes missing, drawers empty. The journal was still under Jenna's pillow, the last entry burned into her memory. If she tries to leave this time, Jenna decided to call the building manager again. When she explained that her roommate had vanished and that she believed someone else had been entering at night, his voice turned uneasy. "That apartment's had issues before," he admitted quietly. "Last tenant before you filed noise complaints, said someone kept changing their locks too. Then they just moved out." He paused. "You might want to check the attic hatch or the crawlspace. Maintenance swore no one lived up there, but," he didn't finish the sentence. That afternoon, Jenna went looking. The apartment had no attic access, but in the hallway closet behind the mop and broken vacuum, she noticed something strange, a square section of the ceiling panel slightly misaligned. She pushed it gently, and it shifted upward with a hollow thud. A puff of dust fell into her hair. Beneath her, the light from her phone illuminated a narrow wooden opening, just wide enough for a person to crawl through. Her stomach twisted, but she couldn't stop now. She grabbed a chair, climbed up, and pulled herself inside. The crawlspace smelled of dust, mildew, and something faintly rotten. The beams were old, the insulation torn away in places. And then she saw it, a small area where someone had clearly been living. A sleeping bag. Food wrappers. A lantern. A pile of spare locks and keys neatly arranged in a tin box. Her pulse thundered as she crawled closer. Among the scattered papers was a faded photograph, Lena, standing beside a man with a thin face and hollow eyes. Scrawled across the back were the words, "Don't let him in again." Before she could react, a soft creak echoed from below. Someone had opened the front door. Jenna froze, staring through a gap in the boards that overlooked her bedroom. Down below, she could see him, the same man from the photograph, moving through her apartment with slow, deliberate steps, head tilted, humming something low and tuneless. He paused under the hatch, his eyes lifting toward the ceiling. And then he smiled. Jenna's breath hitched as she watched the man's face tilt up toward her hiding spot. He didn't move for what felt like minutes, just stood there, that eerie grin stretching across his face like he already knew she was watching. Then, he whispered something, barely audible. "She said you'd come up here." The sound of his voice, calm, almost playful, sent cold shivers down her spine. He began moving through the apartment, slowly, checking each room, humming that same tuneless lullaby. Every floorboard creak sounded like it was getting closer. Jenna crawled backward in panic, her hand landing on the tin box of locks. The metal clattered loudly, echoing through the crawlspace. Below her, the humming stopped. Silence. Then, the creak of footsteps again, directly beneath her. The floorboards groaned, and she heard his voice rise softly, "You shouldn't be in her room." That was when Jenna realized the man wasn't just living up here, he had been here the entire time. The locks, the missing key, the footsteps in the night, it was all him. He hadn't broken in. He'd never left. With shaking hands, Jenna reached for her phone, dialed 911, and whispered for help. But before she could finish, the signal died. No bars. The only light now came from her dimming phone flashlight. She crawled toward the hatch opening, but it was too late. His hand shot up through the gap, pale and veined, clutching at her ankle. Jenna screamed and kicked hard, the phone falling from her hand. It clattered through the hole and landed below with a sharp crack. The hand retreated, and she heard his voice again, closer, angrier. "You took her things. You made her leave." In a burst of adrenaline, Jenna kicked open a side panel of the crawlspace and pulled herself through, tumbling into the building's shared attic corridor. She ran, heart pounding, until she reached the maintenance hatch leading to the stairwell. Behind her, she heard the wood splinter as the man crawled after her, his breathing ragged, animal-like. Jenna threw the hatch open and stumbled down the stairs just as the building manager appeared at the bottom, alerted by her screams. He rushed up, grabbing her by the arm and pulling her outside into the hallway. When police arrived minutes later, they found no one inside. The crawlspace was empty, except for the locks, the journal, and the photograph. But there was one new detail that made every officer uneasy: a note taped to the inside of the front door, written in small, slanted handwriting. It read, "She came back last night. Changed the locks again." Jenna never returned to the apartment. Weeks later, she read a local news article about a missing maintenance worker who'd been caught secretly living in tenants' walls for months, watching them sleep. His name wasn't Lena's boyfriend, it was Lena's brother. The apartment had been his hideout long before Jenna ever moved in. The police said he was still missing. Sometimes, when Jenna locked her new door at night, she swore she could hear the faint rattle of metal on the other side, like someone testing the lock from within.